before we get started, I'll just give you a quick disclaimer from Sarul, and that is Sarul products do not claim to heal or cure any medical conditions. While we have clinical trials that prove the efficacy of our products, we do not make any claims that they can cure or heal any medical conditions.
Well, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world, and welcome to a very special Sarul call, because today we have a very, very special speaker. Today our speaker, she is a master naturopath. She's extremely intelligent. She could have been a medical doctor, but she went on because she wanted to go more the natural way. She understands biochemistry, and I've seen her fix people that I thought were unfixable, and she really is a master of what she does. She has over 20 years of experience, clinical experience, and she's here with us today. So with no more to say, Linda Hoggard, are you on the call?
I sure am. Hi, Ian, and everyone else. Hello.
Well, it is such a privilege to have you here, Linda, because not only do you have the knowledge, you also have the heart. You care so deeply about people, and what you do to help people, I find it totally astounding. And I know you're so passionate about wellness. And today, I know we're going to talk about heart, and I know you are passionate about heart. So can you tell us, why are you so passionate about heart?
Yeah, thank you, Ian. I think I do agree. I'm really passionate around the concepts of wellness, and really passionate around also the ability to help people understand what is going on in their body, and particularly, when you're working with people clinically, one of the most valuable things I see that I do is actually explain to them how they got to the point that they're in, that they're seeking for help. And I guess when we were talking in America recently, I kind of said, one of the big things that I would really like for people to understand is how heart disease develops, because I guess it's another thing to be passionate about heart disease, because it's still the number one killer in most westernized countries, and it's certainly the number one killer for the United States, New Zealand and Australia. And so that's more people dying annually from heart disease than from anything else, including cancer, obviously. And unfortunately for a lot of people, the first symptom of heart disease is a fatal heart attack. So they don't have any other symptoms, no shortness of breath, no pain in the heart, no blood pressure issues, no pains in their arm, etc. Just bang, one big fatal heart attack, and they're dead. So for people who have like more of a minor heart attack or other issues come on, in some ways they're the fortunate ones, because they get a bit of a heads up that something's going wrong, and then have the possibility to seek support in stabilising that disease process.
So Linda, how does somebody get to this point? Because I'm sure it doesn't happen overnight. So how does heart disease develop?
Yeah, that's very much correct. You don't just suddenly kind of drop dead of a heart attack, and unless under some rare situations with acute stress. But I guess heart disease covers quite a different amount of things that happen within the heart and circulation systems. But just to kind of look at heart attacks today, these occur when there's a blood supply to part of the heart which is suddenly interrupted, either because there's been a blood clot or from a piece of ruptured atherosclerotic plaque. So you hear about people having atherosclerosis or hardening of the arteries. And then when this happens, the heart muscle is deprived of oxygen, and that can lead to death of the heart, the actual muscle tissue of the heart. And really, I guess, depending on the severity and the size of that blood clot or plaquing, determines whether the heart attack is going to be instantly fatal, or whether it just creates a level of damage that someone might be hospitalised and recovered from, or they just get a heart scare. But that process of actually how does someone get to that point is a picture that I would really love to build for you. So I want you to imagine an artery connected to the heart. So these are these large blood vessels feeding into and out of the heart. So I want you to think about the inside of this blood vessel as a useful and smooth structure, because this is how it starts out. So the first thing that starts to happen in this heart disease is damage to the blood vessel wall, and there's quite a lot of culprits. And so these are the things that when we're working with people to look at the drivers of the heart disease, which ones of these are apparent. So one thing, for example, is high blood pressure, creating an actual physical stress on that inside of the wall, damaging the cells. And then we have oxidative stress, free radicals, and so these are byproducts of our cells making energy that haven't been neutralized by antioxidants, and this is where the importance of eating well and having a good level of antioxidants in your body, so that as your body's using oxygen to make energy, that the byproducts of this actually get neutralized. So this is a really big issue in excessive exercise. Because someone's having to make more energy in order to exercise more, there's more byproducts. And so if they're not supporting their oxidation pathways, they end up with more of these compounds basically in the bloodstream, damaging the inside cells of the arterial blood vessel walls. Because you've probably heard of triathletes and people who are potentially extremely fit, often dropping dead. And I know there's been a really classic case in the media in Australia recently of a very fit Ironman or triathlete dropping dead at 47 years of age. And that, in my talks around Australia, has sparked a lot of questions. How does that happen? And so essentially you have someone who, in all their training, have fantastic muscular fitness, but they've actually increased the amount of these damaging compounds in their body, and it's ultimately why they look fantastic on the outside. On the inside, there's these elevated levels of damage occurring. And then there's a few other factors. So one thing, I won't go into a lot, but homocysteine, and I guess these are things that people can look up and research, but we also know that this homocysteine compound is one of the most damaging things on the blood vessel wall. And of course inflammation, because everything comes down to inflammation, and you've got to remember that inflammation is actually a whole lot of chemical signaling. So these are actually compounds that have their own effects. And then, of course, stress, and particularly adrenaline under acute stress is one of the most oxidizing and damaging things that can occur along the inside of the blood vessel walls. And then we have poisons like smoking, excessive alcohol, and heavy metals, particularly mercury. And then, something that's been a really big problem in the last few decades is the elevated amount of sugar in people's diets. So hence we live within a disease management system, our medical process, where there's been a lot of targeting of fat and cholesterol, and yet the heart disease rates are higher than ever. And that's ultimately to do with the amount that sugar has become so easily available and, of course, cheap and addictive, and the elevated levels of sugar in the blood physically damaging those cells on the inside of the blood vessel walls. So this is the first line of attack, damaging the arterial wall. So along comes cholesterol in its protective role, adheres to the damage, and ultimately gets all the blame. But biochemically, that first step is the problem, the actual damage that occurs. So reducing and preventing the attack on the wall in the first place is a big part of preventing these issues. And then also having within our bodies a good level of stem cells, particularly endothelial progenitor cells that play the role in the regeneration of this endothelial lining of the blood vessels, is far more relevant. So we've got this picture where we're getting damage in the blood vessel wall, then the cholesterol's coming in, and by this time there's a whole influx of inflammation and immune cells also in the artery wall. So you can imagine that bulging out into the middle part of the blood vessel. And then, unfortunately, that plaque can begin to calcify. So you can almost imagine it almost like a dam coming into the middle of the blood vessel. So in the stagnation of the blood flow, blood clots can form, hence leading to blood clot-based heart attacks, or the plaque, particularly a calcified plaque. You could imagine it just breaking off and rupturing and then physically blocking the blood flow to the heart. So, Ian, I guess that's my insight, to heart attacks and that development of atherosclerosis.
Well, that's so interesting, because in the mainstream, we just hear about cholesterol as the culprit and inflammation or abrasion to the arteries. We don't hear about that. And it's just so fascinating. What you're telling us here is gold, and how sugar is such an inflammatory substance. And we don't hear about this on the mainstream. It's just totally remarkable. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's about really understanding the truth about what happens to the body. And I guess that's always been my journey. And like you said, rather than becoming a medical GP, I went to Australia to study to become a naturopath. One, ultimately to find what was going wrong in my own health, and having recognised that I'd not been able to get any answers along the disease management road. And then I guess then comes the love of biochemistry, where within that field and functional medicine, there are amazing people doing research and leading the way and really going, hey, this is what's happening. We have the ability to see what's going on in the body, but that information's really not always getting down to the general public level. And I think that's one of the wonderful things, I guess, about being available for a call like this, is for everyone who hears this call and then the recording, if they've ever had a question, like how does that come about? Well, I tried not to talk forever on it, but, within a summary of that, there it is, all laid out.
It's fabulous. Now, I know you have some people on the call who have got some great experiences with having more stem cells in their bloodstream and heart. So, Sandra Barnsley in Western Australia, are you on the call?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you great, Sandra. Sandra, I know you have a story with someone, so maybe you could share with us.
I can. Look, I'm extremely passionate about helping people access our amazing products. I've been on stem cell nutrition for 8 years, and when I first discovered them, I was just over the moon. I thought, wow, look what we have in our hands. This product is going to help so many people. So I love the results that I've seen over the years and continue to see today. And I have something to read to you from a wonderful lady here in Perth who is in my team, called Maranatha. She's 78 years old. Maranatha is unable to be on the call today, but very much wanted to share her wonderful story. So these are her words. I was tipped into a freezing swimming pool the first day of school at age 5. I got rheumatic fever, which damaged my heart valves. I was not diagnosed for 2 years and spent 14 months in hospital. My parents were told that I would not recover. Every 4 years in October, I would come down with endocarditis, which is an inflammation of the inner layer of the heart that also involves the heart valves. My parents were told I would not live past 25 years of age. I've had 2 mitral valves and 3 aortic valves replaced. The challenge now is that I cannot be operated on ever again. But now I have StemEnhance ULTRA and Cyactive. When I started the original StemEnhance, I had a tear 0.5 centimetre in size in one of my heart valves, and within 2 months of increasing my own adult stem cell migration, the tear was a pinhole. I now have another tear in a different valve, and now with the Cerule version, it is working even faster than before. Since being on the Cerule products, I'm sleeping much better. For the last 18 months, I've been taking very strong painkillers to get to sleep because of a couple of falls that I've had. Now I'm on half a tablet. Before I couldn't walk very far, but now I can unless I'm very tired. My memory is also much better. I'm here to tell you that I'm a happy little Cerule girl who has got to 78 years and will keep going to 98. Go Cerule. So that's her story. But I want to share with you what I noticed about Maranatha. I hadn't seen Maranatha for several years. I met up with her again when Linda came to Perth to do some talks in September this year. When I saw her, I was quite shocked, as she did not look well at all. She was disorientated, she couldn't stand for very long, she was fragile, she was teary, she didn't recognise some people. She just wasn't her normal self. Linda, being Linda, always wanting to help people, saw that she wasn't well and gave her some of the StemEnhance ULTRA to take straight away to get her on her way to better health. I saw her a few weeks after that, and she had a spirit back. She was full of fire, and Maranatha is a very determined, spirited woman, let me tell you. And I could see that she was on her way back to her old self. She was bright, alert, and interested in life again. You know, honestly, I don't think Maranatha would be with us today if she hadn't started taking StemEnhance. So that's her amazing story.
Wow, thank you, Sandra. I mean, I'm just so honoured to be a part of this, and I love your heart and your passion here as well, Sandra, and it was so great to see you in Vegas. Now, let's go back to Queensland. Let's see. Ruth CD, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here, Ian.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and we can hear you perfectly. Now, Ruth, you turned into a jolly good friend of mine. You live probably about 10 minutes drive from my house, and you've shared your story with me, and I'm blown away with you. So can you share with us what's happened to you with StemEnhance?
Right. When I was 60, I actually had 3 days of dizzy spells, etc., and going to the doctor, found out that I had a leaking valve in the heart after many tests, etc. And not long after, I found that my heart felt like it was enlarged. It actually felt my chest was full of my heart. It felt so big. I couldn't breathe properly. I couldn't bend down to tie the shoelaces on my shoes. Couldn't walk very far, huffing and puffing. Lots of things happening for me. And then I found Cerule. Well, I found StemEnhance in the beginning, and started taking it. And not long, I would say within 2 weeks, it felt like my heart had gone back to normal size. I could reach my shoes with no problem, wasn't huffing and puffing anymore. And as the years have gone on, and I've taken the StemEnhance daily, I've noticed such a change, you know, in my general health, my thinking, my mental alertness, all sorts of things, my energy levels. I did stop the StemEnhance at one stage because I had some financial issues. So that month I missed out, and I felt I was starting to slide back. I felt as if my heart was cramping my chest again, like that it was just taking over, that I couldn't breathe properly again, and so on. So I quickly got back onto the StemEnhance. But the main thing I've noticed since Cerule has created StemEnhance ULTRA, that I have so much more energy. It's like I feel sometimes I just want to get up and run. And I have to stop myself because it speeds up my heart, which is beating too fast anyway. So that's just where I'm at with Cerule right now. I've gone on to double dosage. So I'm taking not only the 2 in the morning now, I'm taking 2 at lunchtime. So look out, everybody. I keep getting told how good I look, how young I look. I have no wrinkles on my face whatsoever at 72 years of age. And I'm just feel I've started a new phase of life. I recently had 6 months in Thailand where I was riding around on the back of a young man's motorcycle. He became a companion to me for quite a while as a good friend. And we traveled, and he just kept saying to me, but your energy is like a young girl's. He said, I can't believe how old you actually are. Well, so that's it. I'll take the StemEnhance for the rest of my life if I need to. But I'm hoping to see results of this hole in the heart, the valve that leaks the blood back out. I'm hoping to see that clear up with taking this extra dosage now. So I'll come back to you at a later stage with results on that, I hope.
Wonderful, Ruth. And I saw you last week before I came to Sri Lanka, and I've never seen you look so good. You really are looking younger and more vibrant and more healthy than ever. You were glowing. Thank you.
Thank you.
now back to
I'll
Linda
pay you later.
So Linda, look, stories of the heart. I'm blown away with all the stories we get with everything, but with the heart. How does this relate to more stem cells available in the bloodstream?
Okay, so guess as we know, our body at a cellular level is constantly renewing and repairing from stem cells migrating from the bone marrow and can become any type of cell in the body. So, of course, when we're talking about the heart, we have heart muscle cells and the cells that make up the valve and that makes up the electrical nodes. So these are all examples of the types of cells that stem cells can become new cells of. So essentially, when you have more stem cells in migration, there are more stem cells available to migrate into the heart and differentiate and become basically functional heart cells. There's that direct rebuilding effect. And when we look at Maranatha's story with rheumatic fever, rheumatic fever, just as a bit of background, comes from when, and it's often in children, they'll get a streptococcal bacterial throat infection, and the infection actually travels and physically damages the heart valves. And so we hear that Maranatha had that 0.5 centimetre hole in her heart valve, and the potential is there that as you increase the stem cell migration, there are more stem cells to become new cells within that heart valve to repair. And then from the point of view, when we're talking about Ruth and that enlarged heart that happens with people, the heart enlarges from a muscular point of view to compensate for the poor movement of blood coming out of the heart. So even though Ruth can't tell us yet exactly what's happened with her heart valve until she's had some more tests, it sounds like already that blood flow and everything has improved so that the enlargement reduces and the heart doesn't need to compensate so much anymore.
Well, it just warms my heart to hear these stories out in the field all the time. And with that, let's go to another gentleman in Queensland, Australia. He lives near the Gold Coast, which is beautiful. Tony Hayden-Smith, are you on the call?
I am, Ian. Good morning to you and everyone on the call.
Tony, so what's happened to you on our product?
Well, I've had heart problems for about 10 years, starting with an abnormal heart rhythm, which was diagnosed as atrial flutter. Several studies have said this is common amongst older athletes, and I was a long-distance runner, so maybe that caused it. I thought doing that would keep me fit, and with good food and supplements, I didn't understand how I was so unfit in my 60s. In 2011, I had an ablation surgery which creates scar tissue within the upper right chamber of the heart in order to block the electrical signals that cause the fluttering. But I was given the wrong medication. That's a problem with a hyphenated name. There was a patient nearby with his last name is Smith, and I got his medication, which made my heart speed. This resulted in me ending up with atrial fibrillation, so stay away from hospitals. They're dangerous places. It's similar to atrial flutter, but more likely to cause the heart to race rather than flutter. But the palpitations are very disruptive and cause extreme fatigue. So all of this time I've been in and out of hospital. As if the racing lasts too long, it can cause blood clotting and result in a stroke. Usually the racing would last 1 or 2 hours and would occur 3 or 4 times a month, most often in the middle of the night for some strange reason. However, in November of last year, it went for 8 hours in hospital, and earlier this year in January, I was in hospital for 17 hours with it racing. The cardiologist was so concerned, he said, just don't do anything for 6 months until the heart recovers. But I was exhausted all of the time, and all I could do was just sit and fall asleep because my heart rate from going over 200 beats a minute went down to under 50. In the meantime, I was supposed to have an operation on my bladder and prostate, and I was concerned that if I went into hospital, my heart would play up. So that's when I decided to try stem cell nutrition. just to build myself up. I had no idea what it would do. Well, my bladder healed quickly, so I cancelled the operation. And since then, I felt better and better each day. I'm a new man. So no more heart problems since then, thanks to Cerebral Stem Cell Nutrition.
Well, Tony, I remember speaking to you in the early days, and you could hardly speak, and now you're glowing as well. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
So let's go back to Linda. Now, Linda, rapid heartbeat, atrial fibrillation, how does this relate to more stem cells available?
One thing, if you would like to get a good explanation of atrial fibrillation, if you go onto YouTube and just put atrial fibrillation into the search engine, it brings up I guess like a cartoon narrated explanation that is just brilliant for you to understand the scenarios that have electrical charges and how the electrical charges kind of move around the atria and create this poor blood flow down into the ventricles of the heart, which is very much then the driver of that extreme fatigue that Tony was talking about, because you're just not getting the rate of blood flow coming out to the heart to take oxygen to the cells to do what oxygen does to help us make energy. And so as atrial fibrillation progresses, extra scar tissue also builds up in the atria from the stress of these misfiring electrical charges, and that actually compounds the problem and heads someone further down that process to actually going into heart failure from poor signalling. So we also know that the body, when the body is damaged, when there aren't enough stem cells available to heal that damage, that scar tissue actually forms. Tony did talk about having surgery where they actually create a scar tissue because they're trying to block the weird charges that are happening. They call it a maze surgery to create this redirection. So for someone like Tony, who has then increased his daily migration of stem cells, the stem cells are then available to become new sino node cells, and these are the cells or the area of the heart that actually creates the electrical charges. So that's one potential mechanism. And then also just having a regenerative effect at a cellular level to stabilise these random extra electrical charges that can set off in the heart. So pretty exciting.
No, it's totally wonderful. And you mentioned regeneration at a cellular level, and because that's what stem cells do. So it's time to start wrapping up, but maybe you can give us, just as a naturopath, seeing all sorts of patients with all sorts of issues, what impacts have you seen in your practice by having more stems available to all your patients and to their overall health?
Yeah. Okay, I guess for one thing I might just summarise what we've been talking about today and then come to that question. So to really reiterate that a higher number of stem cells in the bloodstream helps maintain optimal cardiovascular health by, one, providing more stem cells available for migration and differentiation into functioning cardiac cells. And two, providing more stem cells, particularly the endothelial progenitor cells. And we know that within 45 minutes of having 2 capsules of StemEnhance, we have just over a 70% increase in our baseline migration of these EPC cells for the development of new blood vessels. And 3, providing stem cells which will migrate into the heart and promote the proliferation of the local cardiac stem cells. So the scientific literature really helps us kind of understand at that cellular level what those processes are with the potential for rebuilding. So, and then we see things in my clinic, and I guess from a clinical point of view, when I started having access to the stem cell enhancing supplementation, the results I started to see, particularly with heart people and very much with issues with electrical charges, were unlike I had seen anything before. It was like I actually had the ability to give someone a supplement that is really natural but concentrated and has this ability to enhance the stem cell migration, so that that person then has these extra stem cells as building blocks for the body to do with it what it needs to do. And of course the heart has a really high requirement for stem cells. So I guess my role is just helping people access a product to give them the building blocks for their body to work with. And then, as you know, when you work with people, it's a bit like stand back and watch. I always say that first year that someone is using stem cell nutrition is really interesting. They tend to have a lot of stories about lots of different things changing in their body, and that's because the stem cells work everywhere in their body.
That's wonderful. Now, it is time to wrap up, Linda, so back to you one more time for any final comments.
I guess I really hope that gives everyone like an understanding around how our body and particularly the cardiovascular system can go into that degenerative state. So I mean, I really urge people to embrace wellness and to do what they can to reduce those factors that the damage through the cardiovascular system, and to really take the opportunity to try. And of course, I think most of us know that I really feel most adults do really well on 2 capsules of StemEnhance twice a day, and of course that can be increased if the requirement of the body to rebuild and regenerate is evident. You can increase those amounts, and to really, embrace that process in their body, and to be patient with their healing process, and to see what happens on their own journey of using stem cell nutrition.
Well, Linda, I want to thank you so much. What you're telling us and all the information is gold, because people have no idea of the drivers of disease, and not only are you covering what more stem cells do, you also help covering the drivers, so we can all take more action so we can keep ourselves healthy. So Linda, thank you so much. Tony, thank you. Ruth, thank you. Sandra, thank you. And thank all of you from all over the world